Released March 17th, 2021 by developer Sergey Nozlov and publisher Sometimes You, In Rays of the Light is an atmospheric walking sim with what we've come to know as logic puzzles. Thanks to Sometimes You for the review key. In Rays of the Light puts you in the shoes of a name and voiceless protagonist of sorts. The game starts with you in a room in an abandoned building with no knowledge of what's going on. This basically sets the tone for the rest of the game. There's really no hand-holding. Very few prompts explain what you need to do and very little insight into why you're doing it. So, in true video game form, you're off on an adventure of some kind to figure out your place and purpose. What I quickly deduced, without watching any reviews or promo video, was there was a catastrophe. People got wiped out by perhaps an act of war, and as the game progressed, at a snail's pace for me, I found out I was onto something. The atmosphere is set from the beginning, with an everyone's gone to the rapture vibe. No floating souls and such at first, but still the eerie ghost town feeling. As you make your way through this very small area, as you don't get to do much exploring, you're just stuck in this very small area of a town or city blocked by invisible walls. But as you make your way, you'll meet up on a few items and a handful of puzzles to figure out in your bid to find out what really took place. You'll see cryptic messages scribbled on walls, notes and photos strewn about, a few kerosene lamps, which to this day I do not know what they actually represent, along with other items that serve no purpose in your progression. In Rays of the Light, it has beautiful visuals for what it is, and an equally fitting score that moves with the pace of the experience as it should. You're given an option to choose between color treatments at the start of the game, which I thought was a nice, subtle touch, as none of these options, even the old film look, were over the top. The controls, once tweaked to my liking where sensitivity is concerned, were also sufficient. So I went into this game with reasonable expectations, and most were met. The issue I have lies in the overall gameplay, the creative choices made to relay this message, this story. Now, while I'll never scoff at any atrocities experienced by anyone, I have to say that by game's end, I put the controller down feeling less than satisfied. Now I mentioned the puzzles. I'm no great fan of puzzles in games, but I can appreciate them when incorporated well. Here in Rays of the Light, they were not. These puzzles are referred to as logic-based, but they're not. Some are quite illogical actually, and the whole puzzle element just feels like the dev decided to throw them in to add meat to the bones. When I encounter a puzzle that's solved by getting a fuse out of a crane claw machine, I have to ask myself, how is this logical? What the hell is the fuse doing in here? Why do I have to open these locker doors in a specific order? How is any of this logical? And this is pretty much the vibe I got from the entire game. Now, it's not that I'm not a fan of the genre. I loved Firewatch. What Remains of Edith Finch, as overrated as it is, I enjoyed my time with that too. Gone Home was also worth a go, and these games did have puzzles, but none felt as tacked on and out of place and downright intrusive as the ones in this title. I'm not saying there should have been no puzzles, as I suppose that is required from a game with not much else in it. It's a walking sim, so I get it. But maybe if these puzzles were less obscure, more logical, like many descriptions of In Rays of the Light suggest. These puzzles made no sense to me, and it detracted from my overall experience with a game that I believe could have lived up to the meditative vibe it was going for. I found myself spending way too much time backtracking, wandering aimlessly, exploring every single nook and cranny to see if I missed something. And with a game that has no one else in it, no voice acting, no narrator, no real explanation, well, let's just say I was teetering on the brink of boredom after the first half hour. And again, I like walking sims, but this one here basically made said walking an absolute chore. It does open up as you make your way through this short experience, and I think I totally got the message the dev was sending. But unfortunately, approaching game's end, I was just glad to be through it. There was just way too much nothing in this game. It's pretty linear. There are many invisible walls. There are many doors you cannot open and items you cannot interact with. But this brings me to another point. There are way too many lockers you can open, items you can interact with, and rooms you can go into for absolutely no reason at all. To the fans who will say, these were there as means of story revelation, I call bullshit on that. The soda machine, the car with the radiation meter in it, the bottle beside the projector, the list literally goes on and on. I'm saying the fact that the puzzles were so odd, you may find yourself in some serious self-doubt. You'll start to think, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? Then, you go into a theater room and see where you can turn the seats up with some markings on them and think, this has to be something. But it isn't. Many of the items you could interact with were just there having me feel like a victim of that old game Send the Fool Further. I wasted a lot of time playing through this with aimless wandering. I didn't like that one bit. If any of these items or scenarios I mentioned actually played a part in the game's progression system, then I must have solved several of these puzzles by good old trial and error and dumb luck, like this one. And this. In Rays of the Light could have easily been one of my favorite walking sims, but it fell short with the puzzle mechanic. I love the visuals, I love the score, the animations and controls are fine, it's just the feeling of manufactured hardship I get from the exploration and puzzle solving. I couldn't shake it in game, and I still can't now. In Rays of the Light, it was developed by one man with the aid of a composer, and they both did an admirable job, all things considered. But in Rays of the Light missed the mark for me. This is just one man's opinion, however. It ain't the gospel. So give it a shot for yourself before judging it. This is the PS4 version, but it's also available on the Switch, PS5 and Xbox One. It's also a remake of the 2012 game The Light on PC. AAA games are all well and good, but many times, if you'd like a truly unique experience, one off the beaten path, then the indie scene is where you want to be. Show your support for independent game developers. Most, if not all, indie games are priced relatively low. Some are even free with the option to donate, so there's really no reason to pass. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's say I pissed you off though, then hey, we all know where to find the various hate buttons, don't we? That's right. Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.